Alright, Reddit, here's the thing. I've done a lot of stuff in my life that I shouldn't be proud of. I'm not looking for sympathy, I guess I need to get it off my chest. The one I keep thinking about the most is the time I got involved in a drug deal with a group I really shouldn't have messed with. Dangerous doesn't even begin to cover them. One wrong move, one slip, and I wouldn't be here to tell this story. I wasn't stupid. Well, not completely, but I was desperate. Money had been tight for months, and I had this idea in my head that if I could just make one big score, I could get out of the hole I was in. That's how I ended up getting introduced to them through a friend, who promised it would be clean, easy, and fast. Yeah, classic warning signs right there, I know. But when desperation hits, logic tends to pack its bags and leave. I remember the first time I met them. It was in this dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of the city. They had this energy, like predators circling prey, and I was the prey they hadn't decided to eat yet. They were intimidating, not just in size, but in the way they carried themselves. You could tell they didn't tolerate mistakes. One misstep, and it wasn't just business, they made it personal. I knew stepping into that world meant walking on a knife's edge. But I convinced myself that if I played it smart, kept my head down, and followed the plan, I'd come out ahead. That's how it started. Me, thinking I could handle more than I actually could, standing on the edge of something that could have swallowed me whole. So after that first meeting, I knew I couldn't just walk in blind. These people weren't amateurs. They ran their business like a military operation. Every detail mattered, every move was under scrutiny. I spent days obsessing over what I needed, the right timing, the exact location, even what I was going to wear. Sounds ridiculous, but in that world, even the smallest detail could get you killed. I mapped out the route to the meetup at least 5 times. Checked for cameras, cops, random witnesses, everything. I memorized the back streets, exits, even the smell of the warehouse so I wouldn't hesitate if I had to run. I rehearsed the transaction in my head like it was a stage play. Walk in, show up on time, be calm, hand over the money, get the product, leave without making a scene. I also made sure I had contingencies. I didn't want to carry too much cash on me, just enough to show I was serious. I hid the rest in a locker nearby, just in case someone tried to test me or things went sideways. I thought I was being careful, but I didn't yet realize that with these people, careful wasn't going to be enough. There was also the human factor. I kept telling myself, don't make eye contact too much, don't act nervous, don't look like you want out. It's weird how much you can psych yourself out when you know the wrong glance could be your last. I felt like I was preparing for a war that I wasn't sure I'd survive. By the time the day of the deal came, I had a plan that I was proud of, or so I thought. Everything was organized, calculated, and yet I had this gnawing feeling in my gut that something was off. The day of the deal, I remember feeling this weird mix of adrenaline and nausea, like my body knew something bad was coming even before my mind could catch up. I double-checked the cash, the bag, my shoes, everything. I kept telling myself, just stay calm. Stick to the plan. Don't screw up. When I pulled up to the warehouse, my heart started hammering. It was eerily quiet outside, except for the distant hum of traffic. I parked a little ways away and walked in slowly, trying to look casual, like I belonged there. Yeah, right. The second I opened that door, the smell hit me, metal, smoke, and something else I couldn't place, like fear mixed with oil. They were there waiting, 3 of them. Big guys, tattoos, eyes that didn't blink much. They didn't smile. They didn't joke. One of them glanced at me, then at the cash, then back at me, like he was weighing whether I was a fool or a threat. I could practically feel the tension in the air. I handed over the money, trying not to shake, and watched as one of them checked it. And then, that's when it started to go wrong. One of the guys muttered something I didn't catch, and suddenly there was this energy shift, like the room went from tense to electric. I realized too late that I hadn't noticed a second group lurking in the shadows. My stomach dropped. That's when I understood, no plan survives first contact. I froze for a second, just staring at the shadows. My mind was screaming at me, "Get out! Now!" But my body wouldn't move. The guy who was counting the money looked up, his eyes locking on mine, and I swear I felt him smile, though it wasn't a smile you'd ever call friendly. It was the kind that lets you know you're being tested. One of the other guys stepped forward, a tall guy with a jagged scar down his cheek, and started asking questions, rapid fire, aggressive. He wasn't just checking the money. He was checking me. Where I'd been, who I knew, what I thought I was doing. I could feel the sweat running down my back, but I kept my voice steady. I lied. I smiled. I nodded. I prayed I sounded convincing. Then the deal itself started going wrong. One of them said something about the quantity, and before I could react, he grabbed the bag and shook it like he was trying to see if it had been tampered with. My heart skipped a beat. My stomach dropped. I realized I had miscalculated. The bag had a small tear from when I shoved it into my backpack earlier. They didn't see it, but I knew. I knew it was only a matter of seconds before someone noticed. That's when I realized I was in way over my head. I had no plan for this. Every preparation I thought I had suddenly felt worthless. The adrenaline kicked in so hard it was almost painful, like my body was screaming, "Run! Now!" But I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I figured out a way to get out without ending up gone forever. I realized fast that sticking to the plan was useless. The perfect deal was collapsing around me, and any hesitation could get me seriously hurt, or worse. So I did what I always do in moments like this. I improvised. I tried to act casual, laughed nervously, and made some small talk while subtly edging toward the door. Every word I said was calculated to make me seem like I wasn't panicking, but inside, my chest felt like it was going to explode. One of them noticed my movement, a twitch in my shoulder maybe, and gave me a sharp look. That look made my stomach flip. I could tell they were thinking about testing me, maybe even teaching me a lesson. Then it happened. The guy with the scar stepped closer, and for a moment, time slowed. I thought, this is it. One wrong move, and it's over. I had to do something fast. I grabbed the bag and tossed it toward him, not aggressively, but like I was offering it. He caught it, gave me a hard stare, then, to my surprise, just nodded. That nod felt like the universe letting me live for another day. I didn't wait around. I bolted toward the exit, heart pounding, legs shaking. I kept expecting someone to chase me, to pull a gun, to shout my name. But somehow, I made it out into the cold night air. I ran, not stopping until the warehouse was a distant silhouette behind me, and even then, my hands were trembling so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. I didn't drive straight home. I couldn't. My mind was spinning, replaying every second of that warehouse like a bad movie on repeat. Every glance, every twitch, every flicker of a smile, what did it mean? Had I really gotten away? Or was I just setting myself up for the next disaster? I ended up parked in a quiet lot far from the city. My hands were still shaking. I kept checking the bag, over and over, to make sure everything was still there. The relief I felt when I confirmed it was intense, but it didn't last. Because alongside relief came fear. Fear that they would come after me. Fear that someone would recognize me. Fear that my friend, who got me into this, would sell me out. I called no one. I texted no one. I just sat there, engine off, feeling like my chest was going to cave in. That night, I realized something I hadn't before. Escaping a dangerous situation isn't just about running fast or planning smart. Sometimes it's about sheer luck, and I had a lot of it that night. By the time I finally made it home, the adrenaline was wearing off, and guilt started creeping in. Not just for the deal itself, but for what I'd become in order to survive it. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. The next few days were hell. I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside my window made my heart leap. Every phone notification made me jump. I kept imagining them showing up at my door, or worse, catching me somewhere I thought was safe. I became obsessed with security, locking doors, checking windows, even peeking out from behind curtains just to make sure nobody was watching. At the same time, there was this weird mix of thrill and terror running through me. I had survived something that could have easily ended me. That adrenaline high made me feel invincible for a moment, but it was laced with guilt. I kept thinking about the people on the other side of that deal, the choices I'd made, and how close I'd come to disaster. And then there was the money and the drugs. I had them in my possession now, and I didn't trust myself to handle it. Selling it meant interacting with those people again. Keeping it meant risking discovery. So I stayed in limbo, stuck between relief and panic, and it was exhausting. I started replaying every detail in my head, trying to find the moment I screwed up, the little mistake that could have ended me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there wasn't a single moment. I had just gotten lucky. Pure dumb luck. And knowing that, I couldn't stop shaking. After a few sleepless nights, I realized I couldn't just sit on the stuff forever. The longer I held on to it, the more dangerous it became. Every day I thought about selling it, moving it, or even just getting rid of it, but every option felt like walking straight into a trap. I decided to take a calculated risk. I made some calls, met a few low-level buyers who wouldn't attract attention. Each meeting felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of sharks. One wrong word, one delayed payment, and the wrong person could have been following me. My hands shook every time I handed over a bag or counted cash. I couldn't relax, even for a second. But there was also this thrill, this sick adrenaline rush, that I hated myself for enjoying. I had become someone who could flirt with danger and survive, and that realization scared me more than any confrontation at the warehouse. I wasn't the same person I had been before all of this. Every deal chipped away at the person I thought I was. And even though I was careful, I knew it was only a matter of time before luck ran out. Every new transaction felt like a countdown, tick, 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 until the day I would pay for everything. Just when I thought I had a rhythm, careful meetings, quick handoffs, no close calls, something went sideways. One of the buyers I trusted, a guy I thought was chill, suddenly got greedy. He asked for more than we agreed, hinted at cutting me out of the deal entirely. My stomach dropped the second he said it. I could feel the danger radiating off him, like standing too close to a live wire. I tried to reason with him, play it cool, stay calm, but the second I hesitated, I realized I had made a huge mistake. The guy wasn't bluffing. His friends were around, watching, making sure I knew I had no room to wiggle. For the first time since the warehouse, I felt real panic, not just adrenaline, not just fear, but pure, paralyzing terror. I had to think fast. I lied, I complimented him, I promised the next batch would be bigger, better, but inside, I was screaming. Every instinct told me to run, but I also knew running could trigger something worse. Somehow, I got out of that meeting with the product still in my bag and my skin mostly intact, but it left me shaking for hours afterward. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just lucky, I was stupid. I had survived multiple close calls, but every move I made after the warehouse was stacking the deck against me. And I knew deep down that eventually, the deck would fall. After that incident with the greedy buyer, my paranoia went through the roof. I stopped answering my phone without checking who it was first. Every knock at my door made my heart leap. Every shadow on the street felt like someone following me. I realized the hardest part of surviving this life wasn't the deals, the money, or the danger. It was knowing that I couldn't trust anyone. Even my friend, who introduced me to the group, started feeling suspicious. Every casual question he asked, every text he sent, I read for hidden meaning. I convinced myself he might be planning to sell me out or lead me into a trap. I wasn't sure if I wanted him as an ally or if I wanted him gone entirely. And that thought scared me more than anything else. I had to start operating in complete isolation. No phone calls, no prearranged meetups, no second chances. Every transaction, every move I made, I had to be smarter, faster, quieter. The slightest mistake could blow everything open, my freedom, my safety, maybe even my life. That's when I started realizing something crucial. This wasn't just about making a score anymore. This was about surviving, pure and simple. And surviving meant making decisions that didn't just hurt me, it hurt anyone who got too close. Isolation started eating me alive. I hadn't realized how much I relied on the illusion of control until it slipped through my fingers. Every day felt heavier, every night longer. I couldn't sleep without nightmares of the warehouse, of the scarred guy, of the shadowy figures in alleys. My hands shook constantly, my appetite disappeared, and every minor sound felt like a warning. Guilt was the worst part. I kept replaying every choice I'd made, the lies, the deals, the people I manipulated or scared without care. I wondered if any of them would ever forgive me, or even remember me. I hated myself for the thrill I'd felt, for the adrenaline that had kept me going even as fear gnawed at me. I was addicted to survival and terrified of living with what I'd become. I started talking to myself a lot, rehearsing scenarios, imagining what would happen if someone finally caught up with me. Part of me hoped they would. It would be easier than this endless waiting. But most of me wanted to live, wanted to figure a way out, wanted to make it right, even if I didn't know how. That's when I realized something terrifying. Surviving this wasn't about luck anymore. It was about whether I could outthink the people who wanted to see me gone, and whether I could outlast the person I had become. After weeks of constant fear and second-guessing myself, I decided I couldn't live like that anymore. I needed a plan, not just to survive the next deal, but to take some control back over my life. It was risky, but staying paralyzed by fear was worse. I started small. I moved the remaining stash to a hidden location no one knew about. I changed routines, new routes, new times, new faces. Every action felt deliberate, like I was reclaiming some tiny piece of power I'd lost to the chaos. I even started thinking 2 steps ahead, predicting reactions, imagining worst-case scenarios, and preparing for them. But the higher I climbed, the thinner the line became. One misstep could blow everything open. I had to rely on instinct more than I ever had before. I began testing people subtly, watching their reactions, seeing who could be trusted and who would fold under pressure. Every interaction felt like a chess move, and one wrong one could mean the end of the game. It was exhausting, but strangely empowering. For the first time since the warehouse, I felt like I had some agency in my life again. But I also knew that empowerment came with a cost: constant vigilance, constant fear, and the knowledge that one careless moment could undo everything. It all came to a head one night when I least expected it. I was moving some of the stash to a new location, careful, calculated, thinking I had covered every angle, when I saw headlights in the distance, slowly creeping down the alley I was using as an escape route. My stomach dropped. My heart felt like it would explode through my chest. I ducked behind a dumpster, holding my breath, praying they wouldn't notice me. Every second felt like an hour. The car slowed, then stopped, and I could hear the engine idling. I didn't know if it was cops, rival dealers, or the original group coming to check up on me. I considered running, but I knew that might be the worst move. The car finally moved on, and I stayed crouched there for what felt like forever, shaking uncontrollably. It was a sobering moment. I realized just how close I was to losing everything, not just the stash, not just my freedom, but my life. My luck was running out. And worse, I realized that no amount of planning could ever fully protect me from the chaos I'd put myself into. That night, I understood something I hadn't before. Living in fear might have kept me alive so far, but it was also destroying me from the inside out. I couldn't keep doing this. Not like this. After that night, I couldn't keep pretending I was invincible. I started thinking about every choice I had made, the lies, the deals, the constant paranoia, and realized how lucky I had been to make it this far. Luck, not skill, had carried me through. That thought alone was terrifying. I began distancing myself from everyone connected to the deals, carefully cutting ties without raising suspicion. I got rid of what I couldn't safely move, avoided old routes, and stayed under the radar. Slowly, I started regaining control over my life, but the scars remained. The fear, the guilt, the adrenaline rushes, they didn't just vanish. I carried them with me every day. Most importantly, I learned that desperation can make you blind to danger. Pride and thrill can make you forget what's at stake. And no plan, no matter how meticulous, can protect you from human error or the unpredictable chaos of other people. I had survived, but I knew I had pushed my luck to its absolute limit. I also realized something else. Telling myself I could handle more than I was capable of almost killed me. And that's a lesson I'll never forget. Looking back now, it feels like I'm staring at a version of myself I barely recognize. The person who walked into that warehouse, shaking hands but thinking he was clever, is gone. What replaced him was someone constantly on edge, addicted to adrenaline, haunted by every close call. Surviving wasn't just about making it out alive, it was about surviving myself. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: desperation can make you take risks that aren't worth the reward. No amount of planning can make you untouchable when you're dealing with people who have nothing to lose. Luck can carry you far, but it can't carry you forever. I don't tell this story to brag, and I don't tell it to shock. I tell it as a warning. If you ever find yourself tempted to step into that world, ask yourself, is it really worth it? Because one mistake, one miscalculation, one small risk could erase everything. I survived, yes, but I also learned that survival has a cost. And sometimes the cost is far higher than any score you could ever make. So here's my advice: keep your distance. Don't test your luck. And if you ever feel yourself stepping too close to the edge, remember that some risks aren't worth taking. Because once you cross that line, there's no going back.